Welcome to the show, Highly Questionable Marketing, and we are going to do some highly questionable predictions for 2022. We need like drum roll sound, but that's not going to happen. We don't know what we predicted. We're just going to go in blind like usual, see where this goes. And let's kick it off because I have 4 predictions. You have 4 predictions. We're going to do this and you're going to probably look like you did with the Dave Gearhart predictions. You're just not going to look very good, Joergen. So I'm going to jump right in.
All right. Let's see what you got, man. It better be good.
Oh, well, I don't know.
With this. You know this is a bullshit ass thing to do, by the way, for us to think so highly of ourselves that we're going to come out with our amazing predictions for the next year. This is like the dumbest thing that people do in marketing.
Yeah, but we're doing this knowing we're going to look
yeah,
dumb. So that's
exactly.
the difference, right? There's a lot of people that think they're going to look really smart doing this. So I'm totally fine coming in making my predictions.
By the way, like my biggest pet peeve around this is like people are like, yeah, here are my predictions, and then it's only like stating the most obvious shit, like stuff that's already happening. It's like everything is about personalization. It's like no shit. Really great prediction, true insights there. So let's see if we can do something at least a little bit. I don't know, maybe a little more unexpected.
I'm gonna push the envelope a little bit. Not with my first one, I don't think. Although I don't think people are gonna be ready for it. So my first prediction for 2022 is deep generalists will win. And what I mean by this is the T-shaped marketer has been around for a long time and that's worked. I think with the rate of change happening and the skills required to be successful in marketing now, you cannot be highly specialized in something like paid, like SEO, like messaging. And the reason being is because you need a deep expertise in all of those at this point to be successful. And like when I look at my skill set, this is not meant to brag or anything, it just gives you an idea, is I can pretty much outdo most marketers in product marketing, in messaging, in paid, in organic, in SEO, because I have deep expertise in all those skills. And I really think as a marketer, you need to figure out how to fill those gaps very quickly because the rate of change is going to accelerate and it's going to be critical that you understand all of those components to be successful going into 2022.
Nice one, man. Quick comment, I guess, is that, when you're saying a deep generalist, a different way to say what you said might be, specific knowledge in multiple areas, right? Like, but is it more about being deep enough in multiple areas of marketing, or is it more about understanding how things work together?
A mix of both. I think, right, this is just me. Have you ever worked with a product marketer that's then trying to come up with stuff for paid and you're like, dude, that's not how that shit works, right? Like, there's these huge gaps. And there's also, as you think about the generation of marketers that are growing up, right? I spent years in paid. And then it's when I finally realized that most of the time paid is not the issue that companies face. Then I started going deeper in product and messaging, and I developed deep expertise in those areas. My skill set started to expand. And I realized to even be successful in paid now, if you don't understand how to build a story, how to create effective messaging, and how to do all that and understand your product and everything else, it's a tremendous disadvantage to people that usually get in a room, they all kind of brainstorm their own little expertise and try to bring it together. It's very difficult, at least probably without a piece that is a deep generalist that can bring it all together, to bring that strategy together across touch points.
Got it. Okay. So your first prediction was about the type of marketer that will win in 2022.
That's right.
My first one is the 2021 B2B marketing playbook will not change materially in 2022. And another way to say that is we are all going to be doing basically the same shit in 2022. And I don't think that's a good thing. So there's a difference here between like a prediction, believing that something is going to happen, and actually suggesting that that's how it should go. My hope for 2022 is that more marketers in B2B specifically pick like very different things to do and different ways to go. But I don't see that happening. I see this obsession with revenue, this focus on like, well, it's all about marketing source revenue. And so it's all about like pipeline. So it's all about demand gen. And like, I see that like narrative has sort of gotten such a hold on B2B marketing land. And I don't think we're snapping out of that anytime too soon. And I think, as we've talked about before, the pendulum is just swinging so like aggressively to revenue. I think a lot of people are going to get caught not having thought about the other aspects of marketing, but that's what it is. Like it's going to be more of
Yeah.
the same next year, and I'm not sure it's a great thing.
Ooh, I'm thinking, should I go into my next prediction
Let's
and
do
then we
it.
should
Let's
spin
go.
back? I kind of like that because I think we're gonna have some alignment here. So let's dive in and I want to dive into this a little bit. So my second prediction is actually we're gonna see a massive push back to sales led for some of the reasons that you said. And I think right, I think there's this feeling in marketing like it's our time, right? Like I get this sense that people think that like marketing's time to shine, like the old playbook doesn't work, buyer centric, all this stuff. You need brand but I think that's going to leave a lot of companies in a state that people don't realize, which is marketing's going to get its time to shine. But to your point, all these the shift to pipeline and revenue. Companies are going to look back a year from now and say, "Marketing, where's the revenue pipeline you promised? Not here. Oh, well, we tried that marketing demand gen brand thing that didn't work. Fire up the sales org, get more AEs, get more BDRs, flood the sales team." Right. I think the other thing that's going to happen, because I think sales led's going to come back for a little bit, this whole CRO thing, I think, is a sales led trick in disguise. I think companies are going to get bought into getting the CRO under alignment to revenue, and marketing again is going to be the scapegoat when the revenue results don't come in. And again, the same thing is going to happen. I think there's going to be a step back right now for marketers to take two step forward. And the other thing, the reason I think is the LinkedIn echo chamber. It's so loud right now on what marketing should be, and it's just really misguided. And so we're taking all this advice. Companies are going all in on marketing. They're going to come back at the end of this year. And a lot of CEOs and boards are going to get really like, well, we tried that marketing thing that didn't work. We're going to go back to sales led. And that's an unfortunate prediction, but I do think we're going to see that. And I think that piggyback what you're saying. So maybe I'll stop and you can give, what do you got?
Yeah, I hear you on all that. I wonder if we also both feel like a lot of companies are already doing more sales led growth than they are admitting, right? Like, if you were to believe the LinkedIn echo chamber, you would think like, oh no, it's all product led and community led and freaking, whatever kind of led that you can think of. But in
Yeah.
reality, like most companies don't rock like that. So I
Yeah.
think you're probably going to be right about that one. And it's a bit provocative. It's the people going.
I'm fearful, honestly, for some marketing leaders right now signing up to this. I think we're going to see the tenure of a CMO continue to decline for a little bit. And then I think you'll see a resurgence after next year as we really start to see some of the new, like the things that are coming out will really start to change and people will change their perception. I just think there's a lot of, kind of to your point, sales led kind of in disguise, even, right? Where companies are still sales led. They're not really bought into the marketing stuff, but they're like, oh, we'll try it.
Mm.
I think that's fair.
Okay. I want to make one more quick comment on my first prediction of like shit's gonna stay the same. And that comment is
Yeah.
just that like I think it's also a bit of a human thing, like the desire to believe that somebody else has figured out some stuff so that it's kind of easy is very strong, right? Like all this stuff about like demand gen and blah 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 must be true because like smart people are saying it, and like that means that there's less for me to go out and figure out on my own. I just need to do this, right? Like like freaking
Uh,
5 minute abs or whatever, right? Like it's the same kind of like human psychology thing where I think like we want to believe that somebody's already figured it out. And so we're just going to follow that. It's going to be a bit
yeah.
painful though for a lot that try to roll like that.
Yeah, I think we're talking the same thing. I think there's just, I really felt like this was going to be the transition to marketing is really going to start showing their power. And I really looked back and I'm like, no, there's going to be a step back here. One thing I want to piggyback, because you keep saying the 2021 playbook isn't going to change. Is that you still saying like the lead based, or what do you mean by that a
Mm.
little bit? Just to kind of like, because I don't know what the 2021 playbook is. A lot of people still think lead gen. Are you thinking like, hey, it's that echo chamber demand gen shit? Like, let's come on, Jurgen, come on. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean that's really fair, and that probably brings up a bigger discussion. Like, what? Yeah, what is that playbook? What I really mean by that, the way I'm simplifying it is that it is the demand gen kind of heavy approach, where first of all, like you can kind of both capture and create demand, and here's how you do it. And not only that, like you have to kind of at least pretend like you're all about the data, whether you are or not, whether you're making decisions off of data and really changing your game based on it or not. You still have to like talk about it being what you're about. But yeah, it's the demand gen stuff I'm really talking about, Jay.
Ooh, we need to do a deeper episode on that because lots of marketers are buying into this demand gen thing, and I think I'm like you a little bit. Like, I think there's more of a FOMO with this demand gen
Mm,
buzzword than
yeah.
anything else right now. I think there's a FOMO issue, and marketers. I only say this because what Jurgen kind of talked about, I did. I read this shit on demand gen. I went out there and I tried what I was reading and it didn't work. And there's a lot of marketers that are about to do that. And they're basing their whole 2022 strategy on switching to demand gen. And that's where I think some of our predictions, right, where it's not going to pan out the way I think a lot of marketers think it's going to. And that's where I think we're going to see kind of a step back after next year a little bit.
Are you ready for my next
Prediction three,
one?
what do you got? I think you're up.
Yeah, here we go. I'm going to crack open one of these Coke Zeros. Oh, sorry. Show the camera here. Did you see this, by the way? Now more delicious. Isn't that awesome? It's even more
Yeah,
delicious. Okay, one sip. Here it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
The gap between hypergrowth companies and all the other regular companies will only widen.
Mm,
Here are the
I
implications. Here are the implications, right? Us regular marketers, who work for kind of regular teams and, businesses that are doing just fine and all that stuff, we will continue to believe that the advice from marketers at hypergrowth companies will work for us, and it won't. And it's going to become even more apparent in 2022 that there is a real difference between the companies that are just freaking taking off, whether that's Gong or Hopin or whatever. You're like some of these ones that are like major tailwind by now and like for good reasons have done extremely well and all that stuff. We're going to keep hearing, their type of playbooks and stuff. And then we're going to try to apply it to our own world where resources are limited, where we don't have any kind of like leg up, like, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, you said something interesting. And to be clear, too, you're talking like the companies or like the marketing teams, like high performance or
But, I mean,
just or
for yeah,
both.
I mean, both, I believe, but for the purposes of this,
Yeah,
right? It's the marketing teams inside of
yeah,
these companies. Like the gap
yeah,
is going to be wider.
yeah. I'm with you because this actually piggybacks to the last prediction we just did, and actually piggyback to my next prediction, but I don't want to go into that. Um, which is right. That's what's happening. We're all reading this shit on LinkedIn, and truthfully, most of it comes from martech vendors, agencies, and high growth companies. Right? Like, and I love the people that are posting this stuff. Like Kyle Lacey posts. I love the stuff he posts. It's great content, but don't get it twisted when he gives advice at a high growth stage, right? Like that's the advice people are taking. They're taking this high. Don't 30% of my budget's brand and I don't measure it. Well, go do that as a $5 million SaaS company that hasn't figured out a growth lever yet, and go tell your CEO that your 30% of your budget is brand and you're not going to measure it, right? Like that's just not, it's not going to fly. And I think that's even the demand gen thing we talked about a little bit, right? All these, I posted on a comment, this guy's like, creative and offers are, the one thing to focus on ads. And I'm like, yeah, when you're high growth, right? But if you're not high growth, you have such fundamental things to figure out. And yet these companies get together as a small B2B SaaS and they waste countless hours brainstorming creative for ads, creative for headlines, creative for all this BS. It's like, guys, that's what you do when you're high growth. You're not there yet. Don't waste your time on that stuff. Don't buy into this demand gen shit.
All right. So I'll add one more point to that one, though, which is that fundraising for B2B SaaS companies will not become easier in 2022, which further adds to the gap widening between companies that are really taking off and those that aren't. It's going to be harder.
So
And I know you're
you
not.
think it's going to be harder to get money in next year?
It's not necessarily going to get harder. And by the way, like this, I'm on super thin ice here because I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know it's not going to get easier. I think it's a chance it's going to get harder, but the bigger point is that for the big boys out there and the companies that really have something going, it's not going to get much harder for them, probably easier because there's tons of money out there, right?
Yeah.
No question. But for more
Yeah.
regular, like not explosive growth or a founding team that had 3 exits previously, like if you aren't in like that club, it's not going to get easier. And so that combined with it's harder to also grow, that there's a little bit of potential vicious cycle there for a lot of regular kind of teams, and that's a
Yeah.
really
I want to piggyback off on one more point. I know we're going a little long in this segment, but man, it's worth it. We're having fun. This will be a Christmas Day special.
Merry
Um,
Christmas.
a lot of marketers, what you said, right? Like they're getting their advice from high growth. But there's one other thing I've noticed when you're actually really focused on what's going on LinkedIn. It's a bunch of marketers that are actually selling marketing and sales shit. And that's not to knock what they're doing as effective, but guys, there is literally like anybody can go sell MarTech right now, right? Like there's such demand for it and the demand has increased so dramatically. Like just be careful. Like if you're reading and getting most of your advice and marketing strategies from MarTech vendors and what's working for them, and that's not to discredit it, but there is always a time. You mentioned Hopin, right? Like Hopin just got in at the right time too, right? COVID to have a video platform. This was like there is timing to some of this. So just be really, I want to hear more from like a CMO at a security company and how they're doing marketing, right? Like, or the grind from 1 mil to 5 million and what they did. Like that's the shit you should be listening to actually. All right, let's dive into to my third prediction. Prediction.
Make sure it's a
All
good
right,
one.
all this talk about sales and marketing alignment needs to go away. True growth is going to come from marketing and product alignment, and I think that really needs to happen. I think marketing number one is too aligned to generating demand for sales instead of generating demand for their product. And that's what people really want, right? And I think number two, I've been in organizations, I bet you have too. Marketing seems to always be the most deprioritized when they have product asks. It's like they have to fight and claw tooth and nail. And that can't happen anymore. For high growth, I think the real alignment is between marketing and product teams. That's where the magic's going to happen. And companies that figure that out going into next year will start achieving that high growth we talk about.
That's a good one, Mr. Barron. I'll give you that. That's pretty solid. I don't know though if we're gonna see kind of to that point about like my first prediction of like playbook staying the same. Like marketers seem to be in love with this idea of having alignment with sales, right? Because we all, in some ways, feel like we kind of like have to serve sales. And so we want to get ahead of that, and we want to talk about this alignment, and like, the VP of sales need to be our best friend. And like, so I don't know if we're actually going to see this happen, but your point is well taken, which is we should see like less of an obsession with being so aligned with sales and more with product. And that in my experience, man, like is a massive opportunity for product and marketing to actually work together in ways that can unlock growth.
Yeah.
Like that's a
Let me ask you
massive
this.
opportunity.
And that's, I think, what I mean is like maybe it's not a prediction as much as it's the big opportunity
Yeah.
right now. Because what I've seen, and when I've looked at all the companies I've worked at and the customers I'm helping, and as an agency, we're getting way more involved in product. And that's where it should be, right? Like the biggest gap typically when we're going to market as a marketing team is honestly the product. It's not the sales team. It's what we need in the product to actually go to market to differentiate. I've been at companies where we fight tooth and nail to get a free trial for years and it never comes. Like, guys, this is how our market wants to buy this. Why are we still fighting this battle? Right? Like things like that, or functionality. Like high growth is going to come from marketing and product being tied together, more than sales and marketing alignment. And that's not maybe my prediction, but marketers, that's your opportunity
Mhm.
to outmaneuver your competition, who is probably revenue at all
Yeah, I
costs.
think it's
You
fair
don't
to
want your revenue to grow as much as your product.
shoehorn that in as a, like there's a prediction that there's an opportunity. That's all right. It's all right with me.
Okay.
Okay, next one for me is I think you're gonna challenge me on this one, so I'm kind of excited. So
Okay.
brand will continue to be the biggest opportunity, but most won't take advantage of it. And there are two reasons why. And this is overly simplified for the purposes of like not taking an hour to get this point across, but big established companies that are already doing well are not going to go all in on what I think of as real brand building stuff, because they just get too sucked up and wrapped up in like the machine, right? They technically have the resources, but they sort of pretend like they don't. Like we don't have the bandwidth to send our CEO out to do anything meaningful, or like we don't have the opportunity, like our 50-person team is spread so thin, like just crazy stuff, right? Like, come on, guys. Like, if you actually thought about it, you could absolutely really do something around brand. And the smaller ones just don't have that luxury. Like, you don't have the ability to have 30% of your marketing budget go to brand out the gate and wait, 18 months for it to pay off. Like, you're not able to do that. Now, of course, brand can pay off sooner than that, but you get what I'm saying. But I still
Yeah.
like, I maintain that building a real brand in B2B marketing, and not in the way that we are now pretending that you can do it by just like hosting a cool virtual event, or like somebody is like sharing some cool shit on LinkedIn. Like, the bar is higher than that, right? But truly
Yeah.
creating a brand that people care about because they believe in the point of view, they believe in those values, those principles, they are connected to like what's behind the business, and they feel some sort of way about like what the collective of people around that company are representing. Like, that is still the biggest opportunity, but virtually nobody will actually take advantage of
Hmm. So
it. Here we go, Jay.
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think this is what's going to happen, and where I think we're probably aligned is, and I honestly think this is what you were saying, is most people are misinterpreting the advice of building a brand as awareness, right? And that's the big miss, and that's where I think we'll be aligned, which is you do not need awareness. Your job when you think about building a brand is what I call building a brand that's deserving of awareness, right? Building a brand that's deserving of growth. And most people don't look at it through that lens. They're looking at it through the lens of we're going to go build awareness on our product. We're going to build awareness on our content. And then over time, guys, all this brand affinity and all these people are going to just come flocking to us and all this bullshit. Like, it's bullshit. Like, you have to really think about the fundamentals of marketing. I didn't make that a prediction in here. I kind of toyed with it, but like, it's the fundamentals of truly building a brand that's going to truly differentiate you, that's going to matter. Once you have that, then you can start doing the Kyle Lacey thing and saying, hey, we're going to put 30% and invest it in amplifying our brand message, right? That's the big difference. And I think we're actually more aligned than, man, we're just two kind of aligned guys today.
Must be the holiday spirit. What you got as your last one, man?
All right. Well, it's actually going to piggyback off. Do you have one more after this, or was that
Well,
it?
I do have one more. I got one more in my back pocket.
Okay, good. So I actually think this is why it's really weird. My number one prediction is going to be finally, we're going to see messaging strategy finally become company strategy. I think for the longest time, maybe this goes back to my second point, the product has been the company strategy. Guys, the product is reaching commoditization at this point across industries, right? I was reading, it was an interesting post. I don't remember what it was about. It was like, performance marketing is declining and costs are through the roof and blah, blah, blah. No, what's really happening in most every category, there's more competition. That's really the reality people don't want to admit. It's not that these channels necessarily cost more and things like that. There's way more people in your category probably. And you need to get back to kind of what you said, brand. But to me, it starts with your message. What is our actual provable competitive advantage? What is our differentiated product message? What is our brand narrative? Those are going to be the keys to company strategy going forward. And your entire marketing strategy is going to focus on amplifying that message. I actually think going towards the end of next year, market message fit is going to start becoming more important than product market fit. Because if you do not have market message fit, it's very difficult to drive meaningful growth.
Amen. I believe you on that. I feel the same way. There is no way, arguably, to get the kind of attention that you can turn into business growth without market message fit out the gate.
Yep.
You know, it just the world doesn't work really in any other way.
And yet to really zero in on that though, the biggest problem is so many fucking companies think they have it or think it's all about product market fit. Right? Like that's the biggest problem. I talk to company after company, new customers that try to come to me and they're like, oh, actually, I think we got the messaging down. And I'm looking at it like, what the hell are you talking about? Like your messaging's all over the place. There's just this, we got some work to do, but for those that figure this out, maybe this is more of an opportunity. All of your marketing needs to revolve around your message. You have to have the story locked down, and there's zero reason to go spend a bunch of money on ads and all this bullshit until you do. There's just not anymore, I don't think.
Okay. Huh?
All right, finish us up, Joergen. What do you got?
I might have two more actually. So think to see if you have another one. Maybe we'll end up with a total of 10. Let's go. This is fun. People,
all right, let's do it.
People can stop listening if they don't like this shit.
That's right, they can.
You can just stop listening. So here we go. Marketers will finally wake up to the fact that building community is insanely hard. And so what's going to happen is that we're going up on the curve around things like community-led growth, and like we're all going to be talking more and more about community, and that's going to be like early in the year. And so it's going to kind of seem like this is like some sort of big wave, big trend or whatever. And then a lot of people are going to try to do something half-assed around that, and then it's going to fail, and it's going to be painful. And then it's going to be like most other great things in life. It's just hard to do it well. It's hard to get it right. And it's hard to truly like reap the benefits of it. So it's not like I'm against the idea of community led growth. I just don't believe that for the average marketing team inside the average B2B SaaS company, let's say, that you really have it in you to execute on a strategy that makes community the primary source of your growth. Like that's fantasy shit for
Yeah.
most companies. And my prediction is specifically that people will actually wake up and they will realize that. Because right now we're talking as if there is no sort of ceiling on that opportunity and that it's just like, just flock to that, like community, community. And by the way, this is
Yeah.
fueled a little bit too. Like, I know you aren't as curious about the Web3 world as I might be, but it's fueled a little bit by what's going on there and what's going on with like Discord and things like that, right? Like community has sort of become this big thing in all things tech again. Sort of like how in the Web 2 world early on it was talk about community, and now there's this big, conversation about it again, and as it should be, and it's very real that there is a massive opportunity there. It's just going to be insanely hard for any like random B2B company to build properly around that and to see real growth from that. And we're gonna like call a bit of bullshit on ourselves and we're gonna say, yeah, that's hard as hell.
I love you. I think number one, it's hard as hell, and I'm actually here's the thing with community. As I look at everything that's being preached, okay, you see the podcast shit all over. Start a podcast, right? Start a community. We're overstating how many buyers are really interested in this stuff. Like, we're doing a podcast right now. Joergen, you know how many podcasts I have listened to in my entire life? Zero. Zero. Well, I should say I've listened to Dave Ramsey a few times, but that's it. I cannot tell you one marketing podcast. I've never listened to one, right? I don't have the time. Like, it's oversell. I'll give you another example. Community. And I think I'm the average person, by the way, for the most part. Pavilion. I'm in the Pavilion group, right? I pay for it every year. It's supposed to be a community of marketers and revenue leaders. I have not signed into that Slack in 9 to 12 months. I tried it for 2 weeks, and no knock on them. I know people get use out of it. It was all just a bunch of basic questions. I'm looking at and I'm just like there's no value. There's no real discussion going on here. There's nothing meaningful going on. That's not a knock to them. I think we're overstating how much value is in these communities and how much value there is in doing a podcast. And that's maybe my take on kind of what you said.
Yeah, I understand that, and in some cases, I think that reaction is fair. In others, I think like no, like there is some real value. On the flip side, and like let's be serious about it for a second, right? Like we joke about me and Drift and like my love there and all that stuff. The reality is like what they did with their podcast, Seeking Wisdom. I honestly can say changed my life. I'm not bullshitting. It was the most magical thing that I've experienced in the context of my professional life to date, and I'm old. So like this is not some lightweight like little fluffy thing that just did and it was cute. Like this mattered like a motherfucker to me. And so it is possible. But the thing is, yeah, number one, like it's not for everybody. Not everybody is like tuning in. Like a lot of people are like you, like I got kids, I got all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to be like that deep in a community. But at the same time, you are deep in the LinkedIn community. So it's not like you have no time for it, right? So there's an opportunity. But the bar is really, really high and it's not getting lower. Like that's what I think the biggest thing here is that we're not understanding is as everything goes up. Like I'm like Spotify is like for every minute that goes by, Spotify has more stuff to offer me, right? Netflix the same. Like everything goes up, and then so I don't have extra. I'm not going to have any more time next year to listen to your company's podcast, and I'm
Yeah.
only going to tune in if there's some stuff that I truly care about. And then if we step out of it, I know this is your favorite kind of like card to pull, right? Is if we step outside of like marketers marketing to marketers, And like, let's say like me in my past life, marketing to like network engineers and directors of like IT operations and stuff like that. Am I really going to create a community for them as a marketer? Like, just because as a marketer, I buy into the idea of community led growth or some shit like that. That's insanely hard. Like, how do we have the audacity to believe that we're going to create something game changing for an audience group that's different than us? We're going to
Yeah,
realize how hard
I
that
think
is.
I think you bring up some interesting points, and right to not. There's people that do get value out of it, but I mean, if you're a marketer, that's not going to be 80% of your buyers. I just don't believe that. I don't think that's ever going to be a scenario where you might get someone that listens for a few and then they get busy, right? They might join your community for a little bit and they get busy and they don't ever go back to it again. That's kind of the reality of just the average person. I mean, I'm not hanging my hat on any of that honestly going into next year. So
I want to throw
I'm
one more
I'm
in, and
with you.
if you have another one to close out with after that, then do it. I just feel like being a little more optimistic, and so
Yeah.
I want to throw in some positive thinking here. I believe, and this is like a little bit like wishful thinking probably, but I think there's a real chance of this happening. I believe that in 2022, one or two companies in the B2B world will pop up and stand out and be great and show the rest of the world like what is possible when you go a little bit left and you brave and you don't just like listen to the echo chamber. And so I think about like, whether it was Drift in 2016 or Lessonly a few years back when they started, spray painting llamas, making them golden and shipping them out in the mail or whatever it was, right? Wistia, some of the special things that they've done. I think that we're going to see one or two companies that really do something that like, wow, oh man, like that's different, that's amazing. And that's going to give us hope going into 2023, where I think like playbooks might get completely blown up because seeing some
Yeah.
people doing something great and then also having pain throughout 2022 from trying to like follow this 2021 stuff is going to make for, I think, a more
Mm.
interesting 2023.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like, if I was going to do a prediction, and it's I think, kind of what you said, where I don't think we were negative. Actually, there's a lot of good meat here to
Yeah.
really think about. Is 2022 is the transition year for marketers, right? I think if you really looked at it, you thought this was really going to be our year. I don't think it is, guys. Like, it's hard for me to say, but I really, like, in my heart of hearts, like, believe that right now. I think there's a lot we have to all figure out.
Hmm.
I think it's going to actually be a little painful transition because everybody thinks, right, lead based is dead. There's this new thing, and I think it's very buzzwordy, and I think there's an honorable mention with it, but I think a lot of people don't really get it and understand it and know how to go to market with it. And I think it's going to be a painful year for us to get through, but 2023, right, could be really big. Like,
Mhm.
like really big, and that's what gets me excited. Like, let's get shit figured out this year, man, and just wait
Hmm.
for 2023. If you can get through there, it's going to be exciting.
Could be somewhat of a perfect storm type of scenario brewing. Yeah. Hey, this is fun,
Yep.
man.
I love it. This was great.
All right, I'll catch you next year.
2020, we need to do a 6 month check in
Oh,
and see how we're doing in our predictions. And maybe we'll get one chance to revise
oh
before
man.
one revision, midway check
I'm
in.
not that confident in mine, man. Like I'm not sure how this is gonna look. But it was fun to think through it and fun to debate it with you as always, my man. I'll catch you in the new year.